Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordian Glory video, and in today's episode we are going to be asking and answering one, I say simple question, but the very least we're answering a question, which is going to be which edition is better, 9th edition or 10th? You see, there's been some chit, and dare I say chat, around the proverbial internet water cooler that with all the balance issues of 10th edition that we should just go back to 9th. Indeed, there has been some talk amongst TOs that we're just going to go back to 9th edition. There's too many problems with 10th, and it'll get fixed and it'll get balanced out, but considering all of the work that went into 9th and how things were pretty good by the end of it, you know, we'll just go back to that. That's the general sentiment, and we've seen lots and lots of people, more and more people saying we're going back to previous editions of 40k. In fact, a trend that I saw popping up all over the place were people playing games of like 4th and 3rd and 5th edition. Crazy. Now, we're not going quite that far back today, but there is this big sentiment at the moment that 9th edition was better. Why couldn't we have just stuck with 9th edition? 10th edition has been a bit of a problem. And I just want to have a little thought about that, a little think. And I kind of want to prompt some thinking from your end as well. And so as we're going along and I'm sort of rambling, and this is a bit of a stream of consciousness, and we're just musing on the state of the game and everything, let me know what you're thinking down in the comments section. So why is 10th edition seen as a bit of a problem, and why is 9th edition starting to be revered and held up as a pinnacle of Warhammer 40k? Well, the problem with 10th edition is that it's kind of come out at a bit of a weird time. So at the end of 9th, there were a couple, I'd say 3 kind of big factions that finally got their hands on their proper 9th edition codex. You had a new faction like Leagues of Votann, who, it's always exciting when a new faction comes in, and it's nice, it shakes the game up and all sorts of stuff. And of course Votann had a few balance issues and everything, but they actually got addressed pretty quickly. And so you had a new faction like Votann come in who had the potential to start adding quite a lot to the lore and the universe and the feel of the game, and also affecting tournaments and all that kind of stuff. So Votann came in, and then you had the Imperial Guard getting their codex, and the Imperial Guard are a big faction with a very loyal player base. I always say that the Imperial Guard is one of the biggest communities in 40k. A lot of people just don't realise it. The Guard isn't, you don't collect Guard, the Guard is a way of life, right? So the fact that they had to wait sort of 5 years for the codex, and then you had World Eaters. Now, World Eaters might seem like a minor faction, but let me tell you, there have been people asking for a separate World Eater codex for as long as I can remember. Ever since things like Death Guard started getting parceled off, and Thousand Suns, and when you had things like the Traitor Legions book, I think it was towards the end of 7th, and even long before then, you always had people that were asking, Demonkin in 7th edition, they were kind of like having a World Eater separate codes, but not really, do you know what I mean? So there's been, for a long time, there's been a lot of people that have been asking for this separate World Eater codes, and they finally got it. And not only did they get it, but Angron came back. Oh my god, it was like a really, really big deal. So there was all this hype and all this excitement, and people were like, finally, in a funny sort of way, finally 9th edition is completed. And what would be great is we can just sort of let this play out a little bit. Some factions like World Eaters need a few tweaks, and maybe Guard needed a few tweaks here and there. Kazakin bombs, am I right, guys? I mean, they did get fixed eventually, but you know what I mean? There wasn't, everyone was kind of hyped for maybe another season or 2 of 9th edition. And then it just stopped, because 10th edition came along and hard reset. And that's the thing, 10th edition was a hard reset. It wasn't just a case of, it wasn't like 8th and 9th edition, where you could still use your 8th edition book and it was completely compatible with a few FAQs. Completely compatible by and large with 9th edition. Nothing from 9th edition could be used in 10th edition. You had to get your new index, you had to get your index cards, or use the new app, and the app was pretty good. Obviously it's all paywall and everything now, but it's pretty good. So everyone was all aboard the hype train, and people were starting to really feel like, oh, let's see how the meta can shake out. Now everyone has finally got their codexes, and maybe GW can start going back and looking at some of the earlier ones. You know, maybe Necron's gonna have a 2.0 codex, which isn't just the 1.0 codex, which is a bunch of freaking data sheets shoved into it, and balance sheets shoved into it, I should say. But it all just stopped, and the hype train got, I would say, sort of artificially brakes put on. And so there were a lot of people that ended up sort of feeling a bit dissatisfied. A lot of people that were like, well, you know, kind of could have gone for a bit more 9th edition. Could have gone for maybe a second or third helping in 9th edition. Just to see how the game balanced out. And people were really starting to enjoy how like, Arcs of Omen were coming around. People could have had a bit more 9th edition, I think is the general consensus. But not only could people have had a bit more, but by cutting the game off, by going hard, no more, cut, hard reset, you had a lot of people that also felt let down. A lot of people that also felt a bit disappointed. People who were like, well, I've only just bought my bloody Cadia stands and it's only just turned up and I haven't even managed to finish building and painting the models from it, and oh look, I can't even use this special edition codex. What's crazy is I actually never saw anyone with a normal guard codex. I only ever saw people with the special edition because everyone just got Cadia stands and then that book just went away. I almost don't understand why GW, knowing what they know now, I don't know why they bothered making a regular edition 9th edition guard book. I think maybe 1 or 2 people probably bought it. But the point is that like people were a bit miffed. They were vexed, terribly vexed, because suddenly not only had they not been able to use this product for as long as they'd wanted, not only had they not been sort of been able to flex the wings and see where the game was going to go, but also this product that they've bought now they can't use. So because of this, I think 10th edition came along and it kind of, in many ways, people got hyped for it, but it kind of needed to be squeaky clean. And there was a lot of talk from GW in various like interviews and reveals and stuff where they were like, yes, we can reveal 10th edition's coming and we're going to have an app and we've got combat patrol and it's going to be balanced against each other and the game is going to be balanced and the app's going to work 100% and it's going to be free and everything's going to be great. And everyone was like, oh my God, GW, yes, tell me more. And it needed to be squeaky clean. It needed to just be flawless or near as damn it. All right. But here's the problem. 10th edition wasn't squeaky clean, and there are multiple angles which are causing a lot of negative press and giving it a bad image problem. So firstly, you've got, I would say, kind of the damage you had done towards the end of 9th edition where they were like, oh, guard players, you just need to hold on a little bit longer, hold the line a bit longer, and then you'll get your codex, and then it got taken away from them again. That wasn't good. And then you had the whole image issue of, oh, we've got rid of points. We've got rid of power level, sorry, points are here to stay, but actually they weren't. And then every time Warhammer Community put out a new article, that it seemed like there was always 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards. It feels like we're going to make vehicles tougher, but then we're going to introduce devastating wounds and anti-vehicle and all this kind of stuff. So you had the sort of image problem that was brewing on the social media side. And then when the game actually arrived and you had Eldar, who were initially a very, very broken faction, really dominating everyone. You had Imperial Knights who were really dominating everyone. And you had Custodes who were just shutting out entire combat armies from the game. Loads of different things that were happening on the balance front that was, again, causing loads and loads of negative press. And so because it wasn't squeaky clean, a lot of people have started saying that 9th edition was better than 10th edition. But, and here's the big thing, you can't compare early 10th edition to late 9th edition. Because 9th edition had 3 years of tweaks and nerfs and buffs and refinements and distillation and homogenization and pasteurization and everything else you could think of to get it to the state that it was in. And if you compare the beginning of 9th edition to the beginning of 10th edition, then suddenly you start to realize that this isn't the first time this happens. This is actually kind of a trend that happens in 40k. Think about Dark Eldar at the beginning of 9th edition. They were just as bad as Eldar have been at the beginning of 10th edition. They were crushing everyone. They were absolutely dominating. No one could go near them. Everyone was jumping on the bandwagon, just as we've seen now. Think about Adeptus Mechanicus as well. Oh, baby. Yeah, they were pretty good, weren't they? I remember I had one tournament where I managed to beat an AdMech player by a single point, and I made a huge deal out of it. I came back for the event, I did live streams, I did videos, at the whole 9 yards, and I was like, yes, I have defeated the Adeptus Mechanicus. I am the best general ever. And it was literally because I was running a really, really niche pure Scion army that ran like loads and loads of Torx Primes that just happened to really, really hard counter Scion Skitarii spam at the time. So it wasn't that I was the best general, it just so happened that I managed to hard counter him accidentally with my turbo niche, turbo skew army, as it were. So the thing is that comparing 9th and 10th edition, you have to compare the relative eras. So if we look at early 9th and early 10th, they're in a relatively similar spot. Now that, in some ways, can give us hope for 10th edition. Because 10th edition, given enough balances and tweaks, and they pull enough levers, should get to this point where it's a lot more stable. And that's good news, right? There is a debate to be had about this whole cycle, and should GW leave the game when they get it into a good state and just continue to tweak it and everything? And, you know, should we really stand as consumers for this constant treadmill, this constant cycle? It was Eldar last time, then it was Dark Eldar, then it was Admech, then it's Custodians, and then it was Tau. It's always Tau at some point, right? If in doubt, blame the Tau. But there is one thing that I want to mention about 9th edition that I think a lot of people kind of forget, and a lot of people overlook. That was, by the end of the edition, it was very refined. Oh baby, it was very refined. Everyone knew what lists were the best and which units were the best and all this kind of stuff, and every faction had been dissected and diagnosed and analysed. But it was stale. Tournament attendance towards the end of 9th was going down. Now that partially could be because people were like, we're not going to bother going to events for an edition that's coming to an end. Maybe. But I think people had kind of played a lot of 9th. And while 9th was more balanced and over the course of its lifespan became increasingly more standardized, I think by increasing that standardization, what happened was the game became a bit more boring. Because people knew this matchup was a good one. Oh, this one was a bad one. And people knew, oh, we're playing on UKTC terrain versus WTC terrain versus player place terrain. Right, so this is how I need to build my list to take advantage of these different things. And you just kind of had the game solved. That was kind of it, right? It kind of felt solved. The best part of 40k, especially competitive 40k, is the process of experimentation. Finding out what works and what doesn't work, which combinations come along, and sometimes that gets solved very quickly, but then occasionally some maverick like an orc player will come along with goth pressure or knobs and trucks and just absolutely smash it wide open again, and everyone has to start adapting. That's when 40k competitive plays at its best. But people haven't solved the Da Vinci Code. People are still trying to work out the equation. That's the best bit. And so keeping it fresh and constantly sort of pulling the levers and tweaking things, I think, is important. And I think that's why GW has their 3-year cycle, because they've got a lot of data to draw upon, right? There are a lot of different things they can draw upon. They can be like, well, we've refined this formula where we're going to have this cycle every 3 to 4 years, because we've noticed that every 3 to 4 years, the game, as much as we like to fix the game and sort it out, at the end of that 3 to 4 year cycle, people are kind of losing interest in the game, and so we need to give it a bit of a jolt, juice it up a little bit, give it some pre-workout and get it going again. So maybe it's not GW that's kind of artificially creating this feeling of, oh, we got to keep it fresh and keep people on the treadmill. There is an element of that, but I also think they do that to try and keep player engagement up, because they let the game settle too much. Then people start being a little bit bored of it. Now, this is all just a complete theory. Maybe it is just, keep those rats running on that treadmill. Maybe keep them running in the hamster wheel. Maybe, of course, it could definitely be that. And I wouldn't dispute that if it came out and someone that went, no, I worked at GW and they definitely do have this idea of just artificially just keeping people constantly running. I wouldn't dispute that. But I would also say that as someone who went to a lot of tournaments, by the end of 9th edition, the tournaments were boring, the tournaments were stale, and that was no fault of the TOs. That was just the puzzle had been solved. So for me, and I kind of covered this in one of my last videos, is the game fun? For me, 10th edition has been really, really fun because I've been able to experiment again, unlock new mysteries, solve new puzzles, and it's all been great for like experimenting and just trying different things out. And so the question of, is 9th edition better than 10th edition, really comes down to what you want from the game. If you want a game that was a lot more settled and a lot more set in place and kind of been solved, but you knew when you went online and someone was like, oh yeah, you want to buy this unit, that's good. Oh yeah, you don't want to buy that, that's bad. That you knew that was like good advice and that was legit. The 9th edition is good because it was essentially refined to a really, really, really good point. 10th edition is for those people that kind of want something that's a bit more fresh, and they're willing to accept that that's going to come with some wars and some problems and some teething issues and all that kind of stuff. And so in that regard, I would say 10th edition is better. I would say by the end of 9th edition, even though the tournaments might have been a little bit stale from a purely sort of competitive, who's determining the best, which faction is top dog right now and all this kind of stuff, I would say 9th edition balance and 9th edition competitive play was at a point, that was peak. As stale as it was peak. It was really, it was starting to get to being like a legit esport equivalent, like T-Sport. Just, no, it wasn't quite there, but there was a little inkling of it. And I think that's where some people are so disappointed, because they really wanted to see it start breaking through into the mass appeal market, people being able to like watch games of like 40k and tune into it, and there to be like online leagues and there could be like teams that were starting to form. All of that esport potential was just budding, and then 10th edition came along and went, no. 10th edition though, it's still really fun. It's just got a long way to go. And I think over the course of the next 2, 3, 4 years, it will become increasingly more refined and GW will address the problems. But the one issue I see with that is if you constantly refine 10th edition, it will essentially become 9.5 edition. So the real question here, and the one I want to leave you with, have a little think about, is not is 9th better than 10th? Big question is, how do we keep 40k fun? How do we keep 40k engaging whilst at the same time striving for balance? How can we have a game that both consistently feels fresh without people feeling like they're on a treadmill? And how can we have a game that feels more balanced without it becoming stale? I don't have the answer. This might be something that we talk about more in another one of these sort of musing, rambling videos, but that's what I want to leave you with today. And if you've got any ideas, put them down in that comment section and I'll give them all a read. I'll bring them together for another one of these episodes in the future. But that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think down in the comment sections. If you've got any suggestions for topics or anything like that, please let me know. And of course, if you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to smash that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and Patreons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last, but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier patrons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a massive thank you to Bonbonvert, Ken Starr, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. You are incredible. Your generosity is truly humbling, and I could just say it 1,000 times over and over again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.